Welcome to La Vida Rosa. I'm your host Pinky, and today I'm going to be talking about Married at First Sight. So if you'd like to see more, then just stay tuned. But before we begin, I would like for you to check out my website, lavidarosastyle.com, where you can find cute accessories like the ones I'm wearing right now. The link is down below. Like, comment, and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get into this video. Okay, y'all, so even though this was like a very, I guess, important benchmark in these couples relationships, it was the 1 month anniversary. I'm guessing C19 kind of took the steam out of everything because this felt like a filler episode. Not much happened. I know they had to stretch all of the pre-C19 material out in order to fill up all of these episodes, but I'm just ready to get into the quarantine hijinks because this has been agonizing. These last 2 episodes have been agonizing to sit through. And if I were not someone who reviewed this show every single week, I would have skipped these last 2 episodes. I can't tell you how many times I wanted to fast forward. But anyway, let's start with Amelia and Bennett. So Bennett met with his sister, and I've just come to the conclusion that his sister is a little bit off. And I think that he knows that she's a little bit off, and he humors her because everything that was, it's one thing to be a little bit eccentric, you know, because a lot of their friends are, I mean, they are, but the way his sister acts is just so far outside of the realm of reality that I'm just gonna go ahead and assume there's something that we don't know going on there, and I'm just going to step right over it because none of what she was talking about made sense. It made me feel like I was on something, like my mind was tripping. Like, is this real life? Because she brought a stuffed duck, and I guess it's one from their childhood, and they really sat him down at the table and put a plate in front of it and expected him to eat. I don't know, y'all. She just seemed very uninterested in their relationship, even though she was asking questions and, you know, seemingly acting like she was. I don't think she's really interested in them being together at all. So y'all, I really didn't take any of that seriously. In fact, I just was ready for the scene to be over because I was more than confused by it. Bennett has already been expressing that he seems to be falling in love. So while him and Amelia were going on a hike in the woods, he expressed his love for Amelia, and you know, she didn't say I love you too in the moment, but when they were, you know, doing like a confessional together, she said it on camera, and that was just like, oh, fuzzy lovey moments. That was so sweet. We knew it was coming because they're just so in sync with one another. And later on, when they were celebrating their 1 month anniversary, Bennett comes from outside of his apartment with no shoes on, mind you, with a blender in his hand, not wrapped up in a gift box, not even in a box period, just like a blender in his hand. Mind you, it's a nice blender. It's a Ninja. My grandma has one of those blenders, but I'm just like, okay, it's you know, quarantine, you know, maybe you know, it's quarantine, so you know, I don't know where you got that blender from, but it was a really nice one and she really loved it. So for her gift to Bennett, she actually wrote him a song, and it was a really beautiful song, professing her love to him. And yeah, that's pretty much it for them. Oh yeah, in one of her confessionals, she had a new haircut, and I thought that was so cute on her. That fits her so well. Not much happened, but they're, you know, growing in love, and I love it. I can't wait to see how this move is going to affect them though, because they are going to have to move. According to the previews, she's going to have to move to Richmond, Virginia. So I'm like really anxious to see how that's gonna play out. All right, let's move on to Karen and Miles. So they met up with Woody and Amani this episode. When they first sat down, Woody was gushing about Amani and the wonderful dinner that she made for him, like on his first day back from work, and it was just exactly what he needed apparently. And while he was talking, she, you know, she said, oh, you got something right here. He grabbed a napkin off the table and dip it in her water to get whatever it is he had on his mouth. And it's like, Woody, that is not your water, sir. If that was your water, like, fine, but don't be dipping like a random napkin. I don't care if you claim that it's clean, it came off the table, and just dip it in my water, like. But that is just such, I don't know if that's a Southern thing, but I feel like that's such like a Southern mother thing to do. He asked Woody and Amani what they have learned from this experience so far, and they said, both said patience. Karen says she learned that she's hard to read. And then Miles went on this tangent, like, clearly Karen is hard to read. And so he went on this tangent. He was saying that basically he always tells her that she's attractive, but, you know, he tried to thirst trap her coming out of the shower one day, and it just flopped. She didn't say anything to him about it. But then she told the experts that she thinks that he's cute, and he was completely shocked because she never, like, relays any of that to him. And, like, it was just lasting for too long, and I'm just like, Miles, this is one of the parts that I wanted to fast forward through because it was just going on for too long. And I'm just like, Miles, that ain't really none of their business. Like, y'all already kind of struggling through this, and why do I have to sit here and listen to this struggle story? I mean, it's bad enough that happened, but you're kind of like putting her on the spot. I just know in my mind, if my man was telling all of that, I would have felt away. Like, don't be telling all of what we got going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, tell some cute little fun stuff, but don't be telling all that. Nah. You could talk to Woody behind the scenes with that, but us all four together, to me, it just felt like too much. Like I said, I was just ready to tap out at that point. But then Woody was telling Miles, you know, I can tell by the look. She ain't got to say nothing to me. I could tell by the look. I could tell by the, you know, shoulder drop. And that was funny. I like how Woody can always, like, take an awkward moment and, like, bring it back and do something funny. And, like, because it just, sometimes awkward moments just bother me so bad. Like, y'all, when I'm actually in cringy moments, I literally don't know what to do. And so I'm grateful for people that do. People like Woody, because they could just, like, oh, change the subject. So apparently Miles and Karen's apartment is right above Woody and Amani's. And they said there are some, like, super loud walkers. And let me tell you something. I can't stand some loud people above you in an apartment. I've dealt with that too many times. You know what? I probably have been that person. I think a lot of these apartments just have, like, thin, maybe insulation or whatever. But, that is the absolute worst. Like, I never want to stay below anyone in an apartment ever. It's like literally the worst. Karen and Miles bring up the fact that they want to foster a dog. And of course that, you know, threw hearts in Amani's eyes. And she was like, Woody, I want to foster one too. And Woody's totally against the idea. Woody, you gonna get a dog. You might as well get over it. You might as well get over it. She's going to get it. I feel like Amani already put that bug in Karen's ear to bring that up, because clearly she wants a dog. Then we move on to Karen and Miles' 1-month anniversary. And it's crazy because Miles said, you never know, this might be the last. And I'm like, dang, that's kind of like a negative thing to say on your anniversary, even though it may be true. Just, you know, life and death in the power of the tongue. You don't want to speak that over things, you know, even though it has not been looking good. But according to Miles, you know, they get along much better than what we see on the show. So why would you say that? So at first I was like, okay, I'm surprised they're not, like, on a lavish date. But apparently C19 had already started. That's why we've been seeing a lot of scenes of them at home, and the audio has been off, and sometimes the filming itself has been off, like the picture. And they've been outside a lot because, you know, you knew how it was when we was on lockdown. Couldn't go nowhere. So they were at the park. So first of all, Miles wrote her something dedicated to Black love, and he said he's never seen Black love growing up, so he wanted to, you know, that's something that he wants to have. And so he gave her a t-shirt with a list of iconic Black TV couples on a t-shirt. And, you know, I thought that was a really cute idea. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really like the thought he put behind it. And she actually gave him a kiss. Like, oh, she gave him a kiss on the cheek. Was it on the cheek? Yeah, I think she gave him a kiss on the cheek, but I was like, okay. It was like, okay, she could have gave him a hug, but she gave him a kiss. So I'm like, okay. She didn't give him anything, and I'm just like, you couldn't find anything to get him. Like, you couldn't make him nothing. You couldn't come up with anything. I mean, I know y'all was in quarantine, but he thought ahead, so you couldn't get him anything. But she wasn't the only wife not to give anything. Some couples didn't even give each other nothing. So I guess that's, you know, they get an excuse of C19. But yeah, they seemed like they were really comfortable. He was touching on her leg and stuff. The one thing I want from Karen is very like uptight, and she has like a lot of like knee-jerk reactions, and like when he'll tell a joke, she'll be like, that's her thing every single time. It's like, Karen, loosen up, let your hair down a little bit. This is your husband. She do be joking back sometimes, but I really do think she gets frozen in front of the camera or something, because it's like she just falls into the same uptight reactions. But with that being said, this was like a cute moment for them, and yeah, they seem to be much more comfortable. But I'm also really anxious for them going forward, because it seems like this quarantine is gonna do a number on them as well. So we'll see how they do in the next episode. So let's move on to Brett and Olivia. Brett and Olivia met up with Pastor Cal, like Olivia wanted to do. She wanted to make sure that he's genuine and not doing this just for TV. And she said he's much nicer off camera. And then they showed some clips of them kissing and cuddling. Like, he picked her up and put him in her lap and was like holding her like a baby. I was like, oh, this is what she's talking about. Y'all be like, way, if we just went based off of what we saw, like when the cameras are physically there, I would have never thought they even like hugged. But when we look at the behind the scenes footage, this reminded me of Brandon and Taylor from last season. They were like on camera, they were very like cold towards one another. But then when you see like the camera, like behind the scenes camera footage, that do they know it's a camera up there? But anyway, when you see that camera footage, like y'all been kissing and hugging and booed up. Okay. It kind of gave me a little bit of a different perspective on Brett. He is much more affectionate than what I thought he was. And Olivia is much more responsive. So I have a little bit more hope for them because of it. Because clearly it's a different relationship off camera. And I could see why Olivia gets frustrated with how he is on camera. Because it's like, be the way you was last night. We just had a good night last night. Now you over here being sarcastic and rude and mean simply because I'm having a conversation that you might not be comfortable having. You know what I'm saying? He said he's just more reserved and conscious about how they're being presented to the world. And I'm just like, be real. Instead of trying to make yourself look good, you're making yourself look bad. You know, being sarcastic and, you know, having a wall up, it really doesn't present you in the best light. So it's doing the exact opposite. But he also said he's not just going along to get along. He's being sincere. But she doesn't believe him because of the sarcasm. Dr. Cal said it's a natural reaction to have to get used to the cameras, you know, being a little weirded out by them and maybe like freezing up or acting different. Dr. Cal pointed out that they just seem like they're both afraid of getting hurt, and they just have to trust one another. And she also brought up the fact that he called her insecure, and she was really offended by that. And he felt that she picked a fight with him simply because she wanted a reason not to trust him. She said she was expressing true concern to try to help the situation. So she wasn't trying to like push his button. She was trying to push for a resolution. He feels like she comes off mean when she confronts him. And she wants to make sure that he hears her. Like, she comes off stern because he's so sarcastic and he has such a big personality, and she kind of has like a meek sounding voice. So she's just trying to make sure she's assertive enough to make him realize she means business. I feel like Dr. Cal always does a good job of helping each person see each other's perspective, as well as, you know, showing them what the root cause of this is, and not just, you know, the surface. And so I'm so glad she called up Dr. Cal, because they needed that. And so later on when they're talking, she told him that his sarcasm can come off hurtful and make her defensive. And, you know, Brett was sitting up there looking like it was just taking everything in him not to be sarcastic. Like, he was holding back. Like, he was like, okay, I understand. I will do it. And so I could really appreciate that, because he did look like he was going to explode, but he held back, and he did not get smart with her. So I appreciated that. He said he just wants her to trust his sincerity, and I feel like in that moment Olivia should have just been like, okay, you know, and not feel the need to defend herself, because she was like, well, I do believe you behind the scenes, but not in front of the cameras. Like, you already said that 1,000 times, girl. You already said that. I feel like in that moment she should have just been like, you know what, I'm just gonna take your word for it, because Brett seems sincere enough. Like, even like, I've been feeling a way about Brett, but in this moment and in this episode, I do feel like Brett was being very sincere, and it does seem like he actually does have feelings for Olivia, and he cares about her, especially with the behind the scenes stuff that we didn't see. I'm like, you know, I could see him actually falling for her, you know what I'm saying? So, and he seems like he'll be willing to, you know, change. Now, they do have some major things in the background they're gonna have to work through, but I see more of a possibility now than I did before. Okay, let's move on to Woody and Amani. They got together and they were going to create a budget together, and I thought this was so great. I think all the couples need to do this. I don't know if they have off camera or not, but yes, they're creating a budget. And so when they're coming up with certain things, so Woody said that, you know, he wants to do a date night every single week, and he wants to set aside $150 for a date night every single week. And it's like, Woody, come on, y'all can do something that doesn't cost $150 every single week. Like, y'all can do a picnic, y'all can do like cheap things that is romantic, or, you know, that give you just as much, you know, satisfaction as like a very extravagant date does. He reminded me of Olivia with the spending, okay, because it's just like over the top for no reason. And he also said he's looking forward to buying a house, but then right after that he said he spends between $500 to $1,000 per month on shopping. And it's like, Woody, how you gonna save up for a house and you're frivolously spending $500 to $1,000 per month? And he's just like, he's one of those people that, you know, you work hard for your money, so he feels like you should be able to spend it. And I agree, but to a certain extent, like, you still need to put some money up, especially for you, someone who wants to buy a house. Amani said that he's a more frivolous spender than she is, and she's concerned about his spending habits. He gonna have to reel that in. You're married now, and you can't just be spending $1,000 a month. Especially you want a child too, Woody. You gonna have to reel that in. But the next thing we know, we see Woody going to shop for some diamond earrings for Amani, and I'm just like. And Woody was like, I don't care what nobody says, all women love diamonds. And I'm not even like the most extravagant person. I'm not totally into labels. I ain't gonna lie, I do like to dress up, but, you know, I be wearing thrifted clothes. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to, you know, spend all that money. But if somebody brought me some diamonds, of course I'm gonna be giddy. Of course I'm gonna love that. I'm just, oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm gonna give that same reaction. But anyway, later on, Amani made them dinner for their anniversary, and he gave her the extravagant gift of the diamond earrings, and she seemed to love them. Later on, he gave her coupons for, like, you know, a nice little bubble bath, foot massage, you know, some intimate acts. And so she cashed in on her foot massage that night. And she seemed more excited about the coupons than she did the earrings. And another thing I noticed, Amani didn't get him nothing. I'm like, I know she cooked dinner, but he bought her diamond earrings. And I feel like he put a lot of thought into these coupons. And she didn't get him nothing. I'm just like, come on now. Y'all gonna have to do a little bit better. You gonna have to get him something for anniversary. Come on now. She could have got him a little something. But then again, it's quarantine. Maybe they didn't have time. I gotta keep reminding myself of that. But I just really love the way Woody caters to Amani and really, you know, makes her feel special, makes her feel loved. And Amani says she knocking on love's door. She right there. I think Amani's already there. She's just in denial. She's just trying to protect her heart. All right, let's move on to Henry and Christina. So Henry invited his friend Christina over, and when I saw her walking the door, I'm like, what are you doing here? I just had to bring myself back because, you know, I was just a little concerned because, you know, his wife wasn't there and they having problems, but you know, that's his friend. And Henry was grinning ear to ear. He really was. He was so excited to see her. I mean, like I said, it's his friend. So he told her about what Christina said about like his lack of confidence being a turnoff. And then he began to list like all of his faults. He said, I know I can be hard to read, and I can be monotone, and I can be to myself, and I could be, you know, not very affectionate. She was sitting up there acting like, you know, that, you know, those things are not necessarily negative. And, you know, that's sweet to accept your friend for who he is, but you're not his wife. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to deal with him and live with him day to day. You don't have to be in a relationship with him. So that might be cute to you, but to somebody else, majority of other people, and I feel like even to you, if that was your man, you would feel away if he was like so closed off. He does need to work on that, especially like being closed off and not being affectionate at all. You're gonna have to change that if you're gonna be married. But then Kristen brought up the fact that Christina had a nasty attitude at their housewarming. The thing about Christina is she don't care who's around. She don't care. She has really low self-awareness, I believe, because she doesn't realize how she's coming off to other people to be that nasty and just, you know, have that very condescending tone and like that mean girl attitude, that diva attitude. It's like, that's not endearing. That's not making anybody like you. You know what I'm saying? In fact, it's doing the opposite. She was being very short and very rude and like, you know, we're not going to be able to have a flowing conversation. Like, that's stupid. You know, why do we have to sit here for 15 minutes? Like, she's just such a big complainer. Like, she complains about everything. And it's like, girl, I'm sure it's annoying, but your attitude is not helping the situation whatsoever. And you're definitely not winning his friends over. So Kristen thinks they're just too different to make it. And, you know, she might be right. You know, I wanted to be like she's a hater. But, you know, that's the same thing we've been saying for the past few weeks. Henry, you should change for yourself, gain confidence for yourself, not just for this woman who is low-key mean and rude to you anyway. Like, if Henry were to gain confidence, like snap his fingers and gain confidence, he's still not going to be the aggressive person that Christina like is used to. And so I feel like she'll still try to walk all over him and, you know, treat him a certain way. So maybe she's right. But Henry is still willing to try. So next we have Christina inviting her friend Chris over, and they talk about the fact that they haven't been intimate yet. And she said her other exes have been aggressive on day one as far as intimacy goes. And I'm thinking in my head, well, look where that got you. You signed up for a show called Married at First Sight. You ain't with none of them. And then they were low-key clowning Henry for being like, you know, someone that follows the rules. They were like really like low-key calling him nerdy and talking about him behind his back and laughing at him. And I thought that was kind of rude for both of them to do. She thinks he only sees her as a friend, and he doesn't really like compliment her looks much. And Chris is encouraging her to try harder as far as making a first move towards intimacy, because you see that he's not. And there's nothing wrong with you making the first move, Christine. Like, just because you're used to one thing, that doesn't, try something different. You're married. If you're willing to like participate in the act, why not be willing to initiate it? So later on, they're celebrating their anniversary and they're looking at their pictures from their wedding day. And Christina, like, they were looking at the pictures like right before they met each other, and Christina was joking about, oh, those were better days, and she was like, oh, I'm just joking. And Henry really felt some type of way about those jokes that she be like throwing out there, trying to pretend like she's just being funny, when in actuality, you know, it seems like you're being serious. Like, you're being very passive aggressive towards him. And yeah, I don't blame Henry for feeling a way about that. So at the very end of this episode, in her confessional, she said, it's time to stop comparing him to her exes. And I'm like, are you actually going to do that, or are you just saying that in your confessional? Because Christina is known to say things in her confessional and not, you know, the actions don't match it in person. But overall, I think Henry, during this entire interaction, he was much more talkative and much more expressive. And I see him actually pushing himself to do those things more. I'm actually proud of Henry for trying. You could tell he was trying this episode with Christina. Christina just has a bad attitude when she feel like having one. I feel like if Henry was perfect, Christina would still have a bad attitude. It just is what it is. Everybody sees it. Henry sees it. Production sees it. Kristen saw it. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Y'all let me know how y'all feel down below. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? I would love to hear your opinion, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Peace.